Hello and welcome back to Schooner Pod. I'm your host Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got Ty Lee and Boaton Blake. Jameson has once again opted out. He is not in the building, so he took his Cheez-It Bowl trip a little too early. So, as in, did not go for the Cheez-It Bowl and just went to Orlando anyways. Welcome back to the Weekend Spreads Bowl previews. We're a little bit early on this one because I have stuff going on tomorrow. So we're not going to be covering, obviously, the game tonight or the New Orleans Bowl. Those were in the previous show. So if you want previews for those, if you're just really wanting to see what happens when we think about the Western Kentucky game, just check out the past podcast and scroll to the end. But guys, let's kind of get this thing started. But I want to kind of ask, what are our thoughts on the Bowls so far? Just taking a look at our pick'em so far. Everyone's doing pretty good. Shout out to Z Singer and R Wilson leading our bowl pick'em right now at a pretty damn good 8-3 against the spread. 98.5% of the country they're on par with them, so that's pretty good. And then it's pretty. I'm doing pretty all right, sitting at 7-4 myself. But Blake, what are your thoughts on the bowl so far?
Yeah, a little frustrated with my picks. I was looking back at my records, and for some reason, I chose on the pod BYU, and I chose Eastern Michigan. And for some reason, I selected when I was rushing through it before the games were locking. I put the two opposite teams, both were losers. So I gotta make sure I log the picks as I go tonight. But the games themselves have honestly been pretty good. Besides a few blowouts here and there, I think the Cure Bowl, the one that we highlighted, is probably one of the best games of the bowl season. Really showed out, delivered a great, solid game. And then also, if we're looking at the Celebration Bowl, the HBCU National Championship, although Jackson State was not able to cover and lost that game, it was a fantastic one to watch. It was an incredible watch, one that was probably the best bowl game so far. And although I did not cover that spread, I'm happy that game was that entertaining.
Oh, it was a great game, but I gotta say, we were all over Dion blowing that one. Like, to be favored by 60.5 and lose straight up is pretty bad. And second straight year in a row worked pretty good. Ty, what have you thought of the bowl so far?
Yeah, I think it's been a good bowl season. I mean, the two picks I was most confident about on the last podcast, Oregon State over Florida, and then Jackson State fumbling it, like we talked about, obviously proved it to be correct. So I like how I'm doing. I think I'm 6-5 right now. But my favorite one so far has been that Jackson State. It was just a great game. It was a really, really good game. But it is kind of funny that just the way that played out with sort of, I think, what Coach Prime was expecting from his players and everything else. Not that the players didn't give effort, but I don't know how anyone could have expected that one to go any other way with his postseason record. And at least going to Colorado, he's not going to have to worry about postseason games, so he's got that going for him. But that was a good one. That's probably my favorite bowl game so far.
Yeah, it was a really good one for sure. And, great game. Like, throw the spreads out. Just an awesome battle between two teams. So far, I like the Bulls. I feel like we've been pretty spot on with a couple of these. A couple tough misses here with Boise State. I thought they'd beat, North Texas a little bit more than they did. Our boys, the UConn Huskies, not good at all. UConn is horrible. We misplaced our faith in Sad Husky, I would say. But anyways.
Yeah, I can't believe we forgot they're playing a team that beat Notre Dame this year. That was just looking back. That was I think that was a sort of a groupthink situation going on the podcast. It's just once the ball got rolling and we decided we were going to be on the UConn train, and that maybe, like we talked about a lot this season with Kansas, that whole they seem a whole lot better because your expectations for them are just the absolute rock bottom. Maybe that got us too, but UConn also burned me there.
Probably. Yeah, it probably was a expectation thing, and we were just cheering for a result rather than picking what we thought would happen. But anyways. All right, Blake, let's get these picks on the road here, and we're going to start out with a bowl game being held in the home of the Frogs, Amagi Carter Stadium, hosting the Armed Forces Bowl. It's the Air Force Falcons playing the Baylor Bears, favored by 5.5, playing a bowl game in freezing temperatures at your rival's home site. That's as bad as it gets, right?
It is, and this game's going to be just absolutely miserable. I know the feels like temperature is going to be in the negatives by kickoff. It's just going to be brutal. The weather's not going to be great, and when you see your rival going to play in the college football playoff while you're stuck playing a good Air Force squad, but a meaningless bowl game on a weekday night at your rival stadium, that one hurts. That hurts bad. That's a hard one to come back from, and for that reason, I'm all over Air Force. I think Air Force this year has shown that although they've had some tough misses, like I came on the podcast earlier this year saying I think they're going to win the Mountain West. They struggled with a few teams in the Mountain West, but really the good thing was they closed the season hard. I believe the last four games they won and covered the spread of those games. This team is hot, and I like their style of option that they use. I know we've mentioned before they can throw it a little bit better. Not saying they're gonna throw it, but they have, I think, a little bit more dynamic throwing attack compared to Navy or Army that we saw 2 weekends ago. So I'm going to take Air Force. I think they're a solid team, a hard team to stop for a Baylor team that's probably a little disappointed that they're 6-6.
Yeah, I'm also going with Air Force plus 5.5 here. I feel like service academies usually get it done in these bowls, especially against kind of better talent like a Baylor. I feel like Navy beat Kansas State a couple years ago. We saw Army like pretty much throttle a Houston team in the same bowl game a couple years ago as well. And it's because of two things. I don't think people really try that hard to implement a triple option defense in bowls, and not only that, but motivation. I feel like the service academies get up for these a lot more than vice versa. So I think Air Force is going to come out firing here. And look, again, temperature wise, Air Force is used to playing in the cold. They're up in Colorado Springs. This is not that bad for them, and they don't even have to deal with the altitude. So give me the Falcons plus 5.5 here. Ty, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys have hit on everything that I was going to say. I will be taking the Air Force Academy plus 5.5 here. I don't necessarily think that they win, but I think that they have that offensive ability and then the other stuff going for them that's going to keep it close. Offensive ability being they are going to win time of possession, hands down, no matter how it goes. And they are used to an offense, I think, that best suits itself for the weather conditions, like we've been talking about. Everyone knows, the first thing that goes when you are outside in the cold is your hand dexterity, and taking away the ability of a quarterback to pass and receivers to receive, or degrading that ability will significantly less impact the Air Force Academy than it will Baylor. So I really think Air Force has a lot going for them. And that's before you factor in, again, these are big deal. They're big deal games for everyone that plays in them. For a lot of guys on both sides, this will be the last time they play football ever. So it's an important game for everyone, certainly, but it's a big deal for these service academies. And I think that Air Force keeps it close at a minimum in this one, but I would have Baylor on upset alert for sure here.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a pretty fun one. I'm going to be tuning in for sure. So let's move on to our next game, the Independence Bowl from beautiful Shreveport, Louisiana. Once the bowl that was once named after a weed eating company, which is pretty great. So it's the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns playing kind of host, not really, to the University of Houston Cougars, who are favored by 2.5. Ty, do you think Houston gets a bowl win as they enter the Big 12 here?
I like Houston in this one. It's been well established so far that I've just decided I'm going to pick off of branding when it comes to this bowl season. And the Ragin' Cajuns branding, I've said it before on a podcast long ago, it's like a brand of chips. It does not look like a university branding. Like there are certain design language cues. When I see Ragin' Cajuns, if I don't know what it is, if I see that logo, I think that's either a fast food chain local to Louisiana somewhere, or it's like some off-brand like gas station Lay's copy. I don't see a college football team. So give me the Houston Cougars because that sounds like a college football team, even though they're a commuter school. They're really just the Cincinnati of the South, which is also a commuter school, I believe. I don't really know because I don't care because they're both irrelevant. Give me the Houston Cougars in this one, -2.5.
UCF, also a commuter school, I might add. The only non-commuter school the Big 12's adding is BYU. And I guess technically that is a commuter school for all the Mormons to congregate at, but not really. Anyways, that joke sucked. You know what also sucks though? Louisiana this year. I know obviously in the past couple years they've been hot because of Billy Napier, what he built there, but they're just not the same team they used to be. I think Houston here is going to get the 2.5 point cover and get the win.
I think Louisiana, honestly, they had a pretty decent season, losing kind of the once-in-a-generation coach at a G5 school that really didn't have much success before him. They honestly 6-6 is something that can hang their hat on in the first season of a new head coach. And you know who's been disappointing this year? Houston. Like, we were talking about them on this pod going into it to win the American. An American that I don't think were as super good this year. Like, I know Tulane was able to pull through and honestly was the best squad of the Cincy, UCF, kind of that handful, but like the American was bad this year. Houston didn't do anything, and if you just look at their final 4 or 5 games, they failed to cover 4 of the final 5 games, and their defense could not stop anything, which worries me that Houston just can't pull away from teams. I'm going to take the Raging Cajuns in this one. I think although Houston has a great offense, they can't stop anybody. I think the Raging Cajuns keep it close. And I just feel like I've been burned by Houston in the past. Like, usually I see these short lines, and the preseason Houston expectations come into my head. I'm like, 2.5, that's easy. Like, this Houston team has NFL talent on it, but yet Dana Holgerson sucks in bowl games. He's 2-7 against the spread. I just can't trust this Houston team, so give me the Raging Cajuns.
That's fair. That's fair. Moving on to our next one. It's a Gasparilla Bowl in St. Petersburg, Florida, in Tampa Bay. Or wait, no, I guess it's technically in Tampa Bay now. It's not in that crappy baseball stadium anymore. Used to be the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl. Now it's named after something I couldn't even tell you. But it's Wake Forest playing against the Missouri Tigers. Bit of a weird matchup here. Bit of a funky game, but Wake favored by 1.5. Blake, I'll take you away on this one. Or you take this. What am I trying to say? I can't speak today. Blake, you take it away on this one. Who do you like in the game and why?
This is just a gross matchup. It's two schools that I don't particularly like. Just kind of, I don't know. It's something about their branding. Maybe it's the Purdue, Vanderbilt, Wake Forest kind of triangle. Mizzou just kind of being the worst school in America. I don't know. I just get bad vibes from this game. I'm gonna go Missouri. I hate it. I hate that I have to back Missouri in this, but Wake Forest just limped at the end of the season, where we thought they were gonna contend maybe for an ACC title. They've done absolutely nothing this year. They only won They won and covered just one of their last 5 games in a horrible ACC. The ACC, once now we're dealing with Power 5 schools, is a conference I'm going to be fading the hell out of just because they are not a good conference. I think Missouri is just a very, very average SEC team, but a very average SEC team I think could have won the ACC this year. So give me the Mizzou Tigers.
I'm with Missouri as well here. I think this is actually a pretty relatively evenly matched game, but I don't know. I kind of think Missouri takes the edge here. If both of these teams aren't very good, ultimately, I'm curious to see if Sam Hartman plays on this one or not. If he's going to hit the portal, if he's going to opt out, I don't really know. But frankly, after what we've seen from the back half of the Demon Deacon schedule, I'm just not feeling it. Give me Missouri plus 1.5. This game's a gross toss-up. Don't bet it. Ty?
Yeah, Missouri was a team, as we all know, in the SEC. They were added to the SEC because obviously you need some fodder for the good teams to beat up on. That is Missouri's role. I don't like Missouri. No one likes Missouri, the university. The state has some food stuff going for it. That's to be sure. Wake Forest, I don't know where it is. I assume it is in a forest. Just using context clues with the name Wake would also lead me to believe that there is some sort of, I guess, lake nearby somewhere where wakes could be. I'm not thinking coastline because you usually don't have wakes on a a coastal area where you have surf. So I'll take the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Kind of an oxymoronic name, but I like them more than the Missouri Tigers. There's no Tigers in Missouri. I know that. So give me Wake Forest -1.5 in this one.
All right, moving on to our next game. It's the Hawaii Bowl. Well, I guess it's not. Is this one on Christmas Eve? Are they still doing that with the NFL on? I don't know. Regardless, it's the Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders facing off against Blake's favorite team in the entire country, the San Diego State Aztecs, who are favored by 1.5. This one basically being played at the what is essentially a glorified high school stadium. Doesn't matter. Ty, kick us off here. Who do you like?
Yeah, the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl. I do not know what Easy Post does, but if they want to also sponsor this podcast, we would love that. I would be taking the San Diego State Aztecs -1.5 in here. I'm not saying this to get Blake riled up. I just do not know. Obviously, there's some context clues into where Middle Tennessee is located. I don't know anything about Middle Tennessee State, so I'm going to assume that they haven't really played that many people. So I like the Aztecs in this one and a little bit less of a travel factor for them as well. I would presume that maybe the Middle Tennessee State players might be feeling a little wild getting out there on the islands out from, wherever in Tennessee they are, whereas at least the San Diego State players are used to being in a sort of a similar environment in San Diego. So hopefully they are not going to go crazy with all the wildness of being out in Hawaii. Obviously, it's going to be different for everyone, but I like San Diego State in this one.
Yeah, this one's a really weird one because Middle Tennessee flat out has been one of the strangest teams in college football. They go in, beat Miami, which, look, Miami was not good this year, but beating them on the road, that's a huge feat for a team like Middle Tennessee State. But then they go on the road, or they just go the rest of the way and get blown out by a couple teams. Like I'm talking 40-10 to James Madison, who granted was very good. They're inconsistent as hell, and because of that, I'm going to go with San Diego State. I just kind of feel like they've been a better model of consistency. And like Ty kind of said, I don't think they're going to be distracted as much by Hawaii because they live in San Diego, which is a beautiful, beautiful place. And I think that weirdly enough gives them a bit of an edge. So give me the more consistent team, the San Diego State Aztecs. Like,
Yeah, the only consistency about San Diego State is that they're consistently boring to watch and nobody wants to go to their games. And honestly, I'm happy for them because there's probably going to be more fans at this Hawaii stadium watching this bowl game than come to watch a San Diego State home game at Qualcomm whenever they're basically giving out tickets to everybody on the street, begging people to come to their games. That is just embarrassing, especially for one of the only Mountain West schools that is in a major market, can't even pull fans. But I think this one's relatively easy. It's Middle Tennessee State. It was always Middle Tennessee State. That win versus Miami, big juice. That's all I'm looking at. That's the only time I watched this team this year, and they had some high-flying offense. That's something you can't say about San Diego State, the team that can't separate from anybody, the team that you will fall asleep while watching their games just because they run the ball. It's not even like an interesting run. The option is interesting. They're just a boring team with a bad head coach, and yeah, that's probably it is on Christmas Eve to stash this one away because nobody wants to watch it, and I agree with them. So maybe enjoy some consumerist content instead of watching this snore fest, but give me Middle Tennessee State.
I love it. Let's move on to our next game, the Quick Lane Bowl, featuring the New Mexico State Aggies, who miraculously have made a bowl, facing off against the Bowling Green, I guess they're the Falcons. But Blake, kick us off here. What a shocker for the Aggies to make a bowl. Had to get a waiver granted to get in, which is pretty wild. But I don't know. Who do you think comes out on top here?
I'm gonna do it again. I did it with UConn, and I'm gonna do it with New Mexico State. Go with that perennially bad team to hopefully have some magic. This team has honestly... They are, like, New Mexico State is not good. I don't think Bowling Green is really that good either. Like, I'm honestly surprised when I saw this matchup because usually I feel like Bowling Green is, like, has 4, maybe 5 wins at most each season. But, hey, New Mexico State, Jerry Kill, former TCU interim head coach, taking up that job and honestly taking them to new heights. So, the waiver, yes, although they got a waiver, they did win their final game of the year to get them to 6-6 versus Valpo. 65-3. Valpo hadn't played in like 3 months, but they did it. This is gonna be revenge for UConn and just backing a historically horrible team, but I'm gonna take the Aggies.
Yeah, no, I'm going with the Aggies as well. I feel like it means a lot to them. I don't know if it means anything to Bowling Green because I haven't really cared about them much, but no, I think New Mexico State goes in, gets a win. This one's a toss-up. It from the board, very gross. It's in Detroit. It's in a dome. It's going to be gray. It's going to be sloppy, but I don't know. I like the Aggies to pull this one out. It's another one of those gross coin toss games that you don't really want to pick, but we got to do it anyways. Ty?
Yeah, this one, again, I'm picking off branding. And what do I see? I see some blue. This is a clue that will be revealed later. I see some blue branding here. And then I look at the two teams, Bowling Green, Falcons, whatever. They look like a generic Disney Channel original movie college that someone would go to. And then I look at New Mexico State and I look at their little guy, and some would assume that he's wearing a cowboy hat. But what I see is a fedora. And then I see New Mexico. And what do I see? There's only one thing to be said. Jesse, we need to cover. So I like the Breaking Bad New Mexico State cooking some blue. I don't have no idea what the significance of the blue is here, but give me the Walter White logo, New Mexico State. Jesse, we need to cover. So I will be taking New Mexico State.
I love it. By the way, the blue and silver is a Lions reference because that's the stadium they're playing in. I didn't know what to do with Detroit, but I love it. Yeah, New Mexico State's logo, by the way, they had to legally change it because they used to just have a ripoff version of Pistol Pete, and the Cowboys did not appreciate that, so they made them switch to this weird version of Pistol Pete. So, anyways, let's move on to our what's up.
I was like, they're not. New Mexico State is not the only team with a Pistol Pete. Wyoming also has a Pistol Pete logo, which is wild that everybody had this same logo of this random cowboy.
Yep, same random cowboy. Like he has a whole backstory, I guess. He was actually a real person. I don't know. That's a whole story that we do not need to delve into for now. But let's move on to our next game. It's the Georgia Southern Eagles versus the Buffalo Bulls in the Camellia Bowl, one of the million bowl games just randomly shoved into the state of Alabama for no reason. Screwed up the line here, or screwed up the graphic here. Ignore the -7x to Buffalo because Georgia Southern is favored by 4.5 here. Ty, kick us off.
Yeah, so this one was really interesting to me. It's the Camilla Bowl. I did not know that the current Queen Consort of England was sponsoring a bowl, but thank you to Camilla, I guess. Diana's probably not happy that she doesn't get one, but that's a different story, I suppose. I will be taking Georgia Southern -4.5 in this one. I just feel like the Buffalo Bulls it just doesn't, it sounds wrong, right? Because your brain wants to say the Buffalo Bills, where that quarterback who played at like Utah or whatever is now. But I like Georgia Southern in this one. So I will be taking Georgia Southern -4.5 in the bowl that I guess Diana does not get to sponsor because it's Camilla's.
I also like Georgia Southern in this game. I feel like the Sun Belt has kind of gone through a pretty good renaissance here, where in a couple years it's going to be challenging the American for the best group of 5. And I think Georgia Southern has been a very, very solid team. Pretty sure they're the team that fired Scott Frost. So they have that going for them, which is nice. I like them to get the cover here. -4.5 in the RIP Princess Diana Bowl. Blake?
Yep, I think I'm with y'all. I think it's Georgia Southern. Buffalo Bulls have struggled at the end of the season. They lost. They were on a 3-game losing streak, and then they had the random game before championship week against Akron, one of the worst teams in the MAC. Only beat them by 1, keeping out my beloved UNLV Rebels. We're building something in the desert. Wait for next season, but left them out of the bowl season because they are a 5-7 team with great academics. Another reason why transfers should be going to the desert, but I digress. Buffalo Bulls, they don't have anybody. Their top 2 running backs are out. One of their tight ends have hit the portal. Wide receivers hit the portal. I think their second string quarterback has hit the portal. They got nobody left. And Georgia Southern, not losing anybody, a solid team. We saw them beat Nebraska. Once again, it's like kind of like Middle Tennessee State. It's like beating Nebraska probably wasn't that impressive this year, but when it comes from this G5 ranks, beating any Power 5 team, especially when you have to go on the road, has some merit to it. So I'm going to take Georgia Southern. The Bulls have been limping. They've been limping to this game and just don't really have as many people playing.
They really just haven't been the same. Like they haven't been the same team since Leipold left them a couple years ago. But that's just how it is. Moving on to our next game. It's the First Responder Bowl. Utah State and Memphis from Dallas, Texas. The Gerald Ford Stadium, Blake's favorite stadium, I believe. He had a great time. Gave us great reviews for that game. Memphis favored by 10.5 here. Blake, what do you think?
Yeah, so I don't think I watch a lot of college football. I have not seen a Memphis game this entire year. I know nothing about this squad. I've never intersected. I know they are a solid American team, but the American's my least favorite conference to watch, and they are not one of the top tier teams nor one of the bottom. So they occupy a realm in which I do not enjoy watching football, which is bad G5 conference with average team. I do know something about Utah State though. They came in. I thought they were going to be great. Logan Bonner last year ripped it up, won the Mountain West, came back, and honestly sucked. And I think got benched, and they have not been able to do much all year long. They just kind of beat the teams that they were supposed to beat, but also lost to or they beat UConn, but kind of was the first sign of life that, oh, maybe UConn could be good, but haven't beat a team of quality. I think Memphis is probably just better. They're just better. I don't know much about them, but I just don't have much faith in Utah State after the performance this year.
Yeah, just looking at Memphis's schedule this season, they are 6-6, but they haven't really lost a ton of bad games. They've been kind of close with some pretty solid teams. Just thinking about it, like Tulane, they lost by 10. They lost in quadruple overtime to Eastern Carolina at one point, and they lost by 3 in their last outing at SMU in this exact same stadium. And I just don't think that's not that bad of a record. Like Blake said, Utah State, not very good. Disappointing, showing after they won their they won the Mountain West last year. So a little disappointing there. I like Memphis minus 10.5 here. I think they pull away, get a good win here, but we'll see how it goes. Double-digit spreads, a little uncomfy in bowl games, but we'll see how it goes. Ty, who you like?
Yeah, I'm going to go different from you guys. It sounds like I am taking Utah State in this one. When I just did a little bit of a skimming, so obviously branding is the primary factor, and I just kind of like the Utah State is just a little more clean. The Memphis one, personally, just the way the Tiger is rendered, it leaves something to be desired, in my opinion. But Utah State, when I sort of dove into it a little bit, obviously you can say whatever about Memphis's schedule. It looks like Memphis really hasn't found their legs, so to speak, with a main runner. Their leading rusher currently only has like 400 something yards. And I might be completely missing something here with injuries or something else, but they just really haven't found a solid run game, it seems, just looking at their game stats even. So I kind of like Utah in this one just to keep it close even. Just we know how bowl games can be, and I'm very biased towards the team that can run a little bit better or maybe has a higher potential to run. So I like Utah State in this one, go a little different than you guys.
Cool. I think that's fair. Moving on to our next game, it's a Birmingham Bowl between Teal Chickens, Coastal Carolina, and Eastern Carolina. It's a battle of the Carolinas in Alabama. But anyways, Ty, who do you like here?
No surprise here. I love me my ECU Pirates. Here's what you need to know about this one and about this team. ECU has shown up big in every single big game that they have played so far. And I'm about to, I guess I just got to, I thought I had it pulled up and I don't. So I'm going to continue to talk as I get this pulled up so I can tell you guys. But the Pirates play big games. You can say that they're inconsistent. They've lost games that they should not have lost, for sure. And Coastal Carolina, on paper coming in at 9-3, and then coming off a pretty good year, or a pretty good run in the past. I will say, I think a lot of people are going to be taking them. When I look at this ESPN, only 35% of people are siding with ECU. But ECU, you got to remember, went down to the wire against NC State. NC State obviously turned out to be maybe not that impressive. They lost to Navy, who was a tough team to beat. They lost pretty big to Tulane, but then they beat UCF. They beat BYU. They went right down to the wire with Cincinnati. ECU this year gets up for these big games, and I think they're going to have a ton of buy-in, a ton of will to be there, and I really, really like the Pirates to win big in this one.
Yeah, count me in on ECU as well. And, like you said, there is a lot of percentage going towards Coastal Carolina. But here's the thing. Party's over, folks. Jamie Chadwell off to Liberty, Grayson McCall hitting the portal. They're not going to be the same Coastal Carolina team. I don't know if ever. And I definitely don't think they have the mental fortitude to really kind of bounce back from that and get a win against an Eastern Carolina team that has been very, very good. As you've mentioned, has shown up in big games. They had that BYU win. They've been sort of crossing off, American expats who have left to, the Big Ten the Big 12 in short order. So obviously Coastal Carolina is not one of them, but they've been doing very well, and they almost beat NC State earlier. So give me the Pirates here. -7.5. Party's over in Conway. Blake, who do you like?
Yeah, I'm selling big on Coastal Carolina. Grayson McCall, I believe, will play in this game, even though he has entered the transfer portal and will leave Coastal Carolina. But yeah, without Jamie Chadwell, that's kind of the guy who made this program run. I don't even think Grayson McCall playing really matters that much. Like, we saw him come back and try to play in that Troy game for the conference title, and just they were never in it. Troy handled them, and JMU I don't know, he might have played JMU, but like JMU handled them. Coastal Carolina was kind of sliding at the end of the year, and ECU, honestly, if they wouldn't have lost to Navy and maybe Houston, would have been probably in contention for an American title shot, just because they did keep it close with NC State. Their two losses, like their big ones, were just you going to Tulane and going to Cincinnati, which is very understandable. I think Holton Allers, their quarterback, is a really good quarterback, and just people probably didn't see much of ECU this year, but they're a really solid team, and their head coach is 5-2-1 against the spread in postseason play, which, although like probably trends and stuff like this don't matter as much usually when you're betting on during the football season, I think they matter a little bit more during bowl games, just because like if a coach can't cover against the spread usually in a bowl game, that means he's probably not a good motivator getting them up for an exhibition game. And so I like that. I like that ECU is probably going to come into this motivated with good talent, with Coastal Carolina kind of reeling from losing their head coach and kind of a banged up starting quarterback. So give me the Pirates.
Nice. A sweep for ECU. Moving on to our next game. Oh my God. It's Power 5 teams. This is great. Love to see this. It's the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. They're just formerly known as the Insight Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl, Part 1. This one's being held in a baseball stadium in Arizona. What else could you love? Other than that, we'll see how it goes, because it's the Wisconsin Badgers facing off against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Wisconsin, Bucky, favored by 2.5 here. Blake, kick us off. Who do you like?
This game's just gross. This is a gross game, and I wish we didn't have to pick this one because it's two teams that are just completely sliding right now. Wisconsin, basically everybody has entered the transfer portal or opted out of this game. Jim Leonard, who is their interim coach, knows he is not coming back next year. He's only coaching for this bowl game. That's weird to me. And then when you go to Oklahoma State, like, you have a lot of guys in the portal, Spencer Sanders being the big one. But I gotta side, I think, with the Pokes here. They've kind of been playing this entire year injured after that TCU game. If I'm gonna try to make an angle here, maybe that's a benefit to them. They're kind of used to being down all their players. Like, Wisconsin's been playing full strength, and now all their guys hit the portal, and they really haven't had to play with some of these backups on the field. OSU's backups have been getting a lot of time this year, which isn't good because they really slid at the end of the year. Mike Gundy, 11-5 against the spread in bowl games. I just feel like I at least know what I'm gonna get from this OSU team. I don't think they're very good, but at least I know what I'm going to get. I don't know what I'm going to get from Wisconsin. Their quarterback's in the transfer portal that's been starting all year. Basically, all offensive line, all the wide receivers. It's insane looking at how many key snap guys are in the transfer portal for Wisconsin, even with a coach like Luke Fickell coming. So I'm just going to take, I guess, what I know in the Pokes.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at this as a momentum thing. Wisconsin, they hit their low point early this season when Paul Chryst was fired. And ever since then, they've been kind of working up to just getting over with the season, getting to a bowl. And then they get that Luke Fickell bump, which I think is important. OSU, on the other hand, they had high hopes. This was a team that took out Texas, that was looking like a Big 12 contender, maybe a fringe college football playoff contender at one point, and it all fell apart. And frankly, because of that, I see Wisconsin slightly trending up a little bit more, and Oklahoma State slightly, definitely trending pretty low. Last time we saw the Pokes, they looked like garbage, absolute garbage against West Virginia. I'm just not feeling them. I'm not feeling them at all without Spencer Sanders. So give me Wisconsin minus 2.5. This is a gross game, though. Definitely go with the under. And hopefully, look, best case scenario, we get a gross game in the same vein as like TCU and Cal, which was also played at this stadium. So hopefully they can pay tribute to those two teams we saw way back in 2015 or whatever. So, Ty, who you like here?
Yeah, this one is tough to me, and I guess I will decide as I speak here. The thing is like Blake said, there's so much lost from Wisconsin, but we know that there's a whole lot being lost with Oklahoma State right now as well. I think OSU has a slight advantage in having, people that are remaining on the team that we know have buy-in to the team. And I know that Oklahoma State has fought in some scrappy matchups this year, including with a playoff team. Wisconsin, I don't know that I can say really that they fought hard and sort of scrapped in all of their games, because they just, say what you will about sort of their opponents that they face, but I just don't necessarily see the fighting power and will out of Wisconsin. And admittedly, I've watched them much less than I see out of Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State, like we talked about, has been dinged up all year. They've taken big knocks against their team. They've had storylines, of whatever and everything else, and they have held together. Obviously, we saw some pretty embarrassing performances. They lost to Oklahoma, one of the worst teams in the Big 12 this year, which is just inexcusable for them. But I think I like the Cowboys in this one, and it's a terrible, terrible way to pick, because I know that it's just because I've watched several OSU games in their entirety, and I have not watched a Wisconsin game this year. But I feel like I know what I'm going to get from OSU. I've been burned by that phrase before, but Blake said it again, and I have to ride with that as well. I like the Cowboys in this one. I know that 2.5, I think you're pretty much picking straight up in this one, but I still like the Cowboys straight up, so I will be riding with the Pokes.
All right, I am kind of an island boy here on the Badgers. Let's move on to our next game. It's the UCF Golden Knights, favored by 3.5 against Duke in the Military Bowl. This one being played in Annapolis, I believe, Ty. So, home of your midshipmen. Who do you like in the game?
I like UCF in this one. I straight up think UCF is the better team. And I have seen Duke lose. This is going to be a weird comparison, but I think that the Kansas team that Duke lost to earlier in the season is very similar if you really start to look at it to this UCF. I don't think they have a similar sort of scheme or whatever else, but in the threats that they present to you as the opposing team, I think this UCF team is pretty similar in ability and in what they present to you. And we saw how that turned out. I think UCF, for some reason, I think it's just a culture of that university. They care about these postseason games because they still maintain that upstart chip on their shoulder. I guess startup culture maybe would be even the right thing. And I feel like there is a cultural buy-in at that program, no matter who the head coach is, no matter anything else, of really, really caring about postseason games. I'm sure someone's going to come up with some sort of big exception or a big flop or whatever else. But I think UCF cares about postseason games. That's not to say that Duke does not. But I know that UCF can be a threat to teams, and where UCF really faltered this year was in games that they just did not seem mentally prepared for, or games where the team that they were playing presented something very, very unique, like that Navy game where we saw the midshipmen take a win against them. So I like UCF in this one, -3.5. I like UCF by like 10.
Okay, I like that. And I'm also rolling with you. I think UCF has been pretty darn good in bowls, just kind of thinking about their recent history. And yeah, I think they roll out for this one. And I really just don't think Duke's all that great. I think we saw them start a little bit hot. We had that undefeated matchup with them in Kansas, but overall they're just, they're kind of all right. So give me UCF on this one. Blake?
I'm gonna take Duke. I think before I get into my analysis, I imagine in my head it being quite funny that just UCF fans walking around Navy's campus and bragging about how they're the space school.
Well, you can't.
At the location.
It's like okay. It is it's like a gated base, and the football field is like right at the gate, and then like there's beyond where you would get into the campus. So yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be roaming the campus.
But I feel like there's something weird about the vibes here. UCF saying that they're the space school, and we all know they are not the space school. But if we want to get into the actual game, why I think Duke is going to cover this is Mike Elko honestly put up a fantastic coaching performance this year, going 8-4 with the Duke team that was, even before the season started, was expected to lose to Kansas whenever we thought Kansas was bad. Like, this is how low we thought of this Duke team, and they've been super solid throughout ACC play. I know it's a really bad ACC conference, but really their only bad loss was Georgia Tech, and besides that, they lost by 3 to North Carolina. They lost by single digits to Kansas when Kansas was really just torching teams, and then 2 points on the road at Pittsburgh. Those are very excusable losses. I think they're just a super solid, well-rounded team. And John Reese Plumlee, he might not play in this game. He's kind of been banged up. The final few games of the season, we could tell, like that USF game, Navy, and then going into the championship game versus Tulane just wasn't the same. I'm a little bit worried just because their second-string quarterback for UCF is in the portal right now, so if he can't play, it's a third-stringer we haven't seen, versus a Duke team that I just feel like has been able to keep games close, even in a losing effort. So I kind of like Duke as a sneaky one, just because this would typically be one of those games where I'm like, oh, UCF is really high upside, 3.5's easy. I just feel like this Duke team has been way too solid this year.
I think that's fair. Yeah, like putting up an 8-4 record is pretty unreal at Duke. So I think that's fair. All right, let's move on to our next game. It's a Liberty Bowl, and I had to bring them back. It's the Kansas Jayhawks and the Arkansas Razorbacks. I had to bring our leggy boy back over there. If you're watching, if you're watching live, you know what I'm talking about. If you're listening, it's the little like long leg Jayhawk. We all love him. He's brought good luck to us all. But is he going to bring good luck to the Jayhawks in the Liberty Bowl, their first bowl game in God knows how long? What, 2009, 2010? Unreal what Lance Leipold has done. Blake, do you think KU can somehow keep this game close, maybe get a cover, maybe get a win in Memphis?
I do. And like Kansas, I think I was, just because of how they started at the beginning of the season, I got really burned on the weekend spread. Just keep on backing them. Just like that offense is so good. It is good. They struggled with some injuries, but I think Arkansas is just sliding. Like they've been a huge disappointment this year, losing to Missouri, which I think is a big embarrassment within itself, but also losing to, I believe, was it Liberty as well? They beat BYU, but that Liberty team was not good. KJ Jefferson's going to play. I don't even think that matters. I think Kansas with a full strength squad, Lance Leipold 4-1 against the spread as a coach in bowl games. I feel like he just gets his team up for this game. This is a huge deal. This is a huge deal if you're a Kansas fan to get back to a bowl game. I know Arkansas is going to travel. That gives them a little bit of an edge. Like they're going to bring a lot of fans to a city that is very near to them. Like it is not a far drive, but they have a good amount of people in the portal. They have a good amount of opt-outs on the defensive side. I just feel like Kansas wants this a little bit more. I wanna feel like Kansas can pull through. So I pick it with my heart, but give me the Jayhawks.
I'm gonna go with Kansas as well. I think, like you said, I think it just means more for them. It really does. This is a massive moment for them, and quite frankly, has to feel like a Super Bowl. Arkansas on the other end, started off pretty hot, then just fell off a cliff. They've been, not very good down the stretch. And yeah, I don't know. I think Kansas has the energy. I think they get it done. They have the playmakers to get it done. And I think they get a win here in what will essentially be an Arkansas home game. So, but that being said, They've dealt with adversity all year. They've dealt with doubters all year. They've gone against the grain, and they have put together one of the best seasons in definitely in recent school history. So, give me Kansas plus 4.5 here. It might be wishful thinking. It might be just trying to dream it up, but I think they do it. So, Ty?
Look, I have never been on the Arkansas train at all. I'm talking about the football team, obviously. And you have to go back to September of 2021 for this whole buy-in to Arkansas. I mean, they were never that great. And then September of 2021, they beat like Rice or somebody and then some other like FCS school. And then they beat Texas and they beat Texas A&M. And from like the end of September, they were 4-0 starting out the 2021 season. And everyone had this whole, Arkansas potential contenders in the SEC. They're pretty good. I never bought it. They were, of course, immediately stomped by Georgia the next week to open up October, I believe. Yeah, October 2nd, immediately stomped by Georgia. And then they finished the 2021 season 9-4, which I guess is like okay for them. 4-4 in the SEC. That's, I guess, fairly respectable. But I've never been on the Arkansas train. I don't think they were disappointing this year. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or sort of retroactively say, hey, I was right, but this is what we saw this year is what I expected of this Arkansas team, and it's broadly in line with what we saw from them last year and then in years past. I think, obviously Sam Pittman, their coach over there, has done a great job of establishing a good culture, and he's developing guys well, it seems, and I think they are upward trending for now, but the conference is about to get a whole lot harder. With realignment and then with other people coming in, obviously OU and Texas. But I like Kansas in this one. I think, it means a whole lot to them being able to finish 7-5. So above 500, I think is going to be huge for Kansas. And I think there is a ton of buy-in at that Kansas program. I think there's a ton of buy-in from the coaching staff. I think there is on both sides. I really do. But I think that the advantage that Kansas has is I think both these teams are on an upward trend from some dark ages. but I think Kansas has a tremendous advantage in that they are still greatly accelerating. Obviously they stumbled a lot, but Arkansas, I think they've reached their peak velocity and they're still continuing upward, but I don't necessarily know that Arkansas is accelerating that greatly. And I think Kansas gets a little bump from the fact that this is the first year. This is their, oh my goodness, let's really knock this out of the park year. So I think that a little bit of, I don't want to say beginner's luck, but that little bit of the sweet magic of it being a new thing is going to be the factor. So Jayhawk magic, is it the factor against the Arkansas Razorbacks? I don't know, but I am taking the Jayhawks outright. So certainly Kansas plus 4.5.
Yeah, I will. I guess if I also will say this, if Arkansas loses, I guess they'll just have to go by R because Kansas will have clearly claimed the Kansas part of that. That's a bad joke, but no, I think of the games on this slate, it's this one and then the next one we're talking about that I'm most excited seeing. I'm pumped for the Liberty Bowl, but I'm also pretty pumped for the Holiday Bowl. This one being played at Petco Park in San Diego, which is weird because they have a football stadium that they could perfectly use, but they decided to choose the baseball park instead. I don't know. But it's the UNC Tar Heels playing the Oregon Ducks, who are favored by 9.5. Ty, you've been a big backer of the Duckies the entire season long. Surely you're gonna support them at the end, right?
Yeah, no, God, that was an awkward pause. I'm sorry. I was pulling up my notes. I love this bowl game. I love that it's at Petco Park. Please go look up a picture if you are not familiar. It is like right downtown. It is such a cool venue. I love the idea of bowl games being super unique venues like this. I love bowl games being in baseball stadiums, being in places where football isn't regularly played. Obviously, I love them in the cool NFL stadiums as well, but those just they sort of lack a cool feeling to them sometimes, I feel, especially when they're not sold out. But I love that. Like, this venue is gorgeous. I love this location for both of these teams. I love this matchup. I think Oregon and North Carolina are just really, really good. They're good color matchups. They're good. I think it's a super interesting. I mean, you're talking about a coach at Oregon that's sort of the new generation, on the up and up. You got the old guard with Mac Brown at UNC. I mean, you got a guy who has basically retired from coaching and has taken this job just as a fun gig and is still being extremely successful in a hard market. I love this matchup so much. I will, of course, be riding with the Ducks, but I just wanted to really give my pitch for, I love baseball stadium bowl games. It'd be weird in the regular season or like a recurrent thing. I would not want like a conference championship in one, but baseball stadium bowl games, especially gorgeous, unique venue like this, I love this. Give me the Ducks. This is the game I'm most excited for, at least on this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's going to be good. And, just to show our YouTube viewers what it looks like, that is a awesome setup. I've always loved Petco Park, with that kind of reclaimed building that they have over there,
Mm-hmm.
the Supply Co building that they've integrated into the stadium. It is just, it's really one of the better baseball stadiums in the MLB. But overall, as a football venue, it's pretty cool.
That's actually not even the best angle. If you could see, this is the one to show like the football stadium seating, the view from like on the 50. That sort of center field of view for us here. The view there is just gorgeous. It's just the skyline and everything. It's super, super cool.
Yeah, and it I think does a really good job of like it fits the mold of a football stadium better than a lot of baseball fields. Like we saw a lot of wonkiness with the Fenway Bowl this year, for example, like some weird sight lines. I think Petco kind of works though. Anyways, about the game though. I think this will be a good one. Drake May has been one of the biggest guys who has come out of nowhere this year for North Carolina. He's been great. And, the Ducks with Bo Nix have been pretty great. They were this close to playing in the Pac-12 championship. But, the Beavers got them at the very, very end. Who knows what would have happened if they played that USC team? I kind of think they would have won. But you'll never know. Their consolation prize trip to San Diego, not that bad. But ultimately, I'll say this. I think Oregon is much better than the Holiday Bowl, in my opinion. And I think UNC, despite the hype that Drake May gave them, is not a good football team. He inched them across the finish line so many times. That North Carolina Tar Heel team was not very good. A lot of close wins, and they still did not end up with all that great of a record. So you know what? I like Oregon and the guys Bo Nix and crew to get a win. It's 9.5 for a reason. I think Vegas has a right idea here. Even without offense coordinator Kenny Dillingham, I think they do a really good job here. Get a win, get a cover. So give me the Ducks minus 9.5. Like,
yeah, I think this is a very intriguing matchup, but I'm not going to overthink this one. I think it's the Ducks. Although the Ducks, kind of that final Oregon State game, like a gut punch when you think you can make a conference title game and then your rival takes you out, that feels horrible. But at least I know kind of their final two losses, that and then Washington 2 weeks earlier. At least I know it's probably due to the fact that Bo Nix was banged up. He didn't have his legs, that mobility. That's kind of what makes Bo Nix dangerous. And if you take that out, he's a very average passer. I think Bo Nix, he's going to be rested, healthy. He said he's going to return to Oregon, going to play in this bowl game. That brings a lot of excitement, and an Oregon team that, even though they have a good amount of people in the portal, I think very well-rounded, a little bit better on the offensive end, but still well-rounded. UNC, like y'all have said, just kind of been a dumpster fire. We knew their defense wasn't good all year, but at least Drake May was able to pull them to the finish in any of those games. But my God, just kind of that skid with Georgia Tech, NC State, and Clemson losses to end the season. And besides Georgia Tech, I don't feel like they were in most of those games. It just felt like UNC, kind of the Mac Brown experiment, although he's got them back to kind of good, like I would say like 8-4, kind of like good, like yay, that was a solid season for a team that prides itself on basketball. He's not delivering the recruiting he once did. I think Drake May really covers a lot of those holes. I think Phil Longo leaving kind of will take a dent more than Dillingham leaving for Arizona State. I feel like Oregon's just the better rounded team, and seeing how UNC just came into the end of the season just sliding, I just can't imagine them getting up to this game and just shocking Oregon.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really Ty. What's up?
I was just gonna say, Bobby, I'll take it after you. Whatever.
I didn't really have anything. I didn't really have anything to say. I just said I thought it was going to be a really interesting game.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before we move on, a quick shout out to the Pac-12 for just having the worst system, I think, for determining who gets to play in their championship game. And obviously I am sort of an Oregon fan, but even as a fan of college football, I do not like the system. I think if you're going to have a game like that, you got to have divisions, especially with the size of their conference. Like, their conference is a size that you could do divisions. It does not have to be the winning percentages versus like head-to-head matchups or whatever else, because then you get a situation where you get like some of the best teams in the conference never even face each other or have the potential to. Like a Oregon versus a USC matchup would have been great. Obviously, Oregon failed their part of the bargain, but you got to have like divisions. Just as a fan of college football, I think for like clarity.
Well,
like,
yeah, and here's the thing.
Away from it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that's wild. They still have the divisions. The divisions still exist for scheduling purposes. They just ignore them for the conference championship now, which is, what the hell are you thinking, Well,
it's confusing. I think from like outside looking in, right, you got to have it easy for the whoever fan, like the casual fan, me, because I get confused by this. Because you get down to like the last week of the season, and it's like not even a clear path for anyone. It's like the weird, like, who is, I don't know.
See, I think it works. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, Blake, you got it.
It doesn't work in the Pac-12. I think divisions actually made sense there because it was pretty, like, honestly, evenly balanced, like, with their divisions. I think the no divisions works really well in the Big Ten. Like, I think the Big Ten West has gotten to the point where it's so dreadful that it's like you need kind of that spice there with that final game. I don't think the Pac-12 ever like suffered with that. I thought the divisions were honestly pretty equal. I know you like worry about an upstart USC in the bottom just kind of dominating whoever it was from the north, but I feel like Washington and Oregon are always solid teams. With Washington State feels like good coaching. Like there's solid programs there where I was like that one didn't have to go to a divisional system.
Well, and even there were years where Stanford was really good too. Like it always felt balanced. I can't think of a single Pac-12 championship game where I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. Whereas in the Big Ten, every single year it's Michigan or Ohio State versus like Northwestern or Purdue, and they get slaughtered every year, and it doesn't that doesn't make sense to me. But like you said, the pack is pretty balanced, and it's not a good move. Not a good move. I agree with you guys.
But that's the pack for you. They're always zigging when everybody else is zagging, but usually the zigging is the one making all the money, not the zagging. So that kind of explains that conference existence for you.
Yeah, they basically zig, but when they zig, it's into like a ditch full of like cash. And the car doesn't move. They're stuck. Bad things happen to them because USC, UCLA leave because there's more cash. But they don't care. They're just going to stay there anyways. Which is why you have the Arizona teams and Utah and Colorado stay in that dumpster fire of a conference instead of going and joining the Big 12 and trying to build something that could maybe, if you're lucky, compete with an SEC or a Big 10. But instead, nope, they're just cool, wallowing over in the Pac-12 with their elitism and Apple money, or eventual Apple money. So we'll see how that goes. But that conference is not going to be competitive for years. But anyways, that's a different debate for a different time. All right, moving on to our next game. We have the Texas Bowl with the Texas Tech Red Raiders and the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss favored by 3.5 here. Blake, who do you like?
You already know who I like. There is no way in hell I am choosing Texas Tech, even though they did the biggest mass media campaign of all time to say that they sold their ticket allotment for this game. Yes, it's in Houston. Your whole knack against y'all is that you'll travel to every major city which you live in to go to games, but you won't actually go to your home stadium. I didn't expect nothing else. Texas Tech, they don't really have many people in the transfer portal. They're just all right. I think Tyler Show is going to be the one that's starting. I think Ole Miss has the better talent, both their running back groups. I just think Ole Miss, the fraud in the SEC, but is way better, way better than this Texas Tech team. I haven't even looked what the line is now, but this might be similar to how Southern Miss was. This is going to be my lock. This is going to be my lock of the bowl season. I just see no way Texas Tech beats Ole Miss. There's absolutely no way. I don't care if that stadium is full with Texas Tech players. We've seen it before. They did a whole little ceremony for Patrick Mahomes and got blown out by Baylor. It doesn't matter if their fans are there. This team is just a mediocre franchise at best. Give me Ole Miss. I think this is going to be a rout.
This is tricky because I don't really see Ole Miss getting up for this. But they are very clearly, in my mind, the more talented team. Man, it's tough. I think this is tricky. I'm going to go Ole Miss minus 3.5. I think they're just a better team. I could see this being way closer than you think, but 3.5 is too low of a number with the divide in talent that we have here in this matchup. And here's the thing. Houston isn't exactly that far away from Mississippi in the first place. So, we'll see how it goes, but I like the Ole Miss Rebels here to cover 3.5, but I don't love it. It's just a pick I'm going to make because I think Texas Tech, they can have all the motivation, all the rah-rah they want from Joey McGuire. But I don't think that's enough to split the gap in talent between the two sides. Ty?
I'm going to keep it short. I like the Rebs in this one. Obviously, some personal bias against Texas Tech right now, but I think just objectively, I like the tools that the Rebs have. Offensively, I think the Rebs are better coached. I think they have better players as a whole, and this is not an SEC bit. Just Ole Miss always recruits super, super well. Anyone who has seen The Blind Side would know this. But I just also great job with the graphics here. But I like
thank you.
I like Ole Miss in this one. I think Texas Tech is a team this year that has certainly outdone expectations. Obviously, anything I say as an OU fan is going to sound biased or spiteful, but I think that Texas Tech is a team that has flown above its station. I think they have already outperformed what this team is, and I think that's going to just based on pure statistics going to force sort of a regression back down to the mean. Whereas I think Ole Miss, I think they performed about as well as we could expect for them, but I really think that this one is a bit of a mismatch. And I'm not saying, oh, SEC West is harder than the Big 12. I think the Big 12 straight up was the most competitive conference this year for certain. And I'm not trying to just pander to Blake. I see him nodding his head. And I'm not trying to justify OU's just atrocious performance this year. But the Big 12 objectively was the most competitive conference this year, I believe. A part of that is the system. You know, everyone plays everyone and a conference championship game. USC, for example, never had to face Oregon in the pack like we just talked about. But I like the Rebs in this one, -3.5. I think they get that one pretty easily. And yeah.
I gotta say, by the way, speaking of Ole Miss and The Blind Side, the best thing about like that movie is the fact that it gave us an IMDb page for Houston Nutt, who starred in that show or in that movie as himself. And because of that, I found out that he played a janitor in another movie in 2016. So shout out to Houston Nutt. Justice for Houston Nutt. Get the Nut back into college football. I need to see him coaching again. I don't know why. I just need him.
That's funny. The best scene in The Blind Side, period, is when Nick Saban comes to the house, knocks on the door, they open it, he walks in, and then goes, "I'm Nick Saban. Can I come in?" It's just such an amazing scene. Because I imagine that's actually how he is. Yeah, I think he didn't know he was acting. I think he thought he was actually recruiting someone.
They definitely told him, they're like, we got a 5-star here, like you, and like they just want to record this for like family keepsake, and he probably just rolled with it. Like he'll do anything to get that next 5-star.
Incredible. Also, Coach O was in that movie, and Tuberville.
Forget
Tuberville, but Coach O.
Yeah, the coach's scene of that. Kirby Smart's in it. I think he's an assistant when he's in it. But yeah, the coach's scene in that movie is legendary every time you see it.
Yeah, elite college football scene for sure. But yeah, and the funny thing about that too is they had Saban wear an LSU shirt for it because if you kind of have to be historically accurate, but he was Alabama's head coach at the time, so kind of fun.
Nothing will ever top I believe it's AT&T where the kid does a flip and then the end of the commercial was, "Hello, son, I'm Bob Stoops."
Hello. Well, the obviously like dubbed over hello, like it does not sound like Bob Stoops.
Yeah, he didn't do the voice. It's like he just walked up silently and then they had to voice over. Yeah.
Man, I feel like we had that video clip somewhere, but I'm not going to search it right now. But damn. Yeah, well, that's all we have for this week. We have a whole lot of other picks coming up, but we have to kind of wait on Jameson for that. And let time pass. But next time up, we'll be talking about the New Year's Six Bowls, the OU bowl game, that sort of stuff. So these are about to get a lot more fun, I think, when we're not talking about, like Georgia Southern and some of these scrappy, digging through the crumb type of bowls. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. Blake, are you starting to get nervous about everything with the Fiesta Bowl? Have the jitters hit yet?
No, the jitters actually haven't. I think I've come to peace that like kind of played a little bit with house money, but honestly, like Travius Hodges Tomlinson came out today and said Michigan is very similar to Texas. And when you put the season stats side by side on how much they run, how much they pass, touchdowns, everything, very, very similar. I think TCU can win this game. So I feel confident, but I'm more just excited. Like, I'm excited to be in this moment. There's a chance I had to book my national championship tickets and my plane flight this week just in case if that happens, just because of how fast these things are selling out, considering the Frogs have never been in this position. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great game. I think, like we said earlier, the first college football playoff that I think both games are going to be really competitive. Usually kind of one, either the 2-3, 1-4, one of those. Usually the 1-4 because it's usually Bama and some fodder is a blowout, and I just don't think that's going to happen this year. So,
yeah, I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it for sure. By the way,
hello.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a dubbed in hello. So finally found that, got it loaded. Ty, final thoughts on just, I don't know, the podcast, things in general. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I think it's been a slow bowl game season so far. Honestly, not to say it's been disappointing, but there just hasn't been any games that have caught the eye. And then, of course, it's been like midday during the week games. So I just haven't felt the hype, but I'm excited for these games coming up. And yeah, looking forward especially from a picking perspective, that TCU 9.5 line, I think is just not realistic at all. I think the Frogs do have a chance in that one. So I'm very excited for that one, but I'm very excited for, I don't want to say the real bowl games because all the bowl games matter to everyone, but I'm excited for some of these upcoming matches that we touched on in this podcast. And then, the real exciting stuff begins as we go into what will be our next episode. So
yeah. No, it's about to get real good. And then, we've been kind of away from a little bit of the OU stuff the past couple of weeks, kind of taking a little bit of a break, letting things develop. Not really a lot to talk about. Nobody's really hankering for cheese at bowl news, but we got early signing day tomorrow and hope to do something with that pretty soon. So keep an eye for that on that if you're an OU fan. But looking forward to talking about more bowls, the bigger bowls, later next week. But that is the show we have for today. Thank you all for listening, whether it's on our YouTube channel or wherever you like to listen to your podcast. We deeply appreciate it. Deeply appreciate your patronage all season long. And hope to see you as we continue to march through bowl season. Well, for me, Ty, and Boat Blake, this has been the Weekend Spread Bowl Picks. We'll see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.
Hello.